Some wars, they aren't defined by their battles or their victories. They're defined by the fact that they just don't end. They become this permanent, ugly feature of the landscape, and they're usually fueled by something way deeper than just military strategy. Today, we're going to dig into one of the most defining conflicts of our time. And it really comes down to this one question, right? Why do certain conflicts get stuck in this vicious, seemingly endless cycle of violence? They just defy every attempt at peace, every negotiation. It's not just about who has the bigger army. It's about something way more tangled, way more difficult to solve. And look, this is nothing new. I mean, just think about the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta. We're talking a 50-year slog that just completely exhausted both sides. In the end, there was no clear winner. History is absolutely littered with these kinds of wars, where the only real victor is exhaustion itself. Which, of course, brings us to what's happening right now. What was announced to the world as a quick, surgical, special military operation has ballooned into a brutal, multi-year war of attrition, with absolutely no end in sight. Just take a look at how we got here. Back in early 2022, the whole expectation was a lightning-fast victory for Russia. But that calculation, it was just completely and totally wrong. What they didn't count on was the fierce Ukrainian resistance, which was supercharged by Western weapons and intelligence. That turned what was supposed to be a blitz into this long, grinding stalemate. And if things keep going this way, well, we're looking at a conflict that, even 4 years in, is only getting worse. So what is keeping this fire burning so hot? To really get that, you have to look at the two leaders at the absolute heart of this conflict. Their personal convictions, well, they've become a massive driving force behind the whole thing. And here's the fundamental clash. For Vladimir Putin, this whole thing is about cementing Russia's status as a great power. Anything less than a total victory is seen as a direct threat to his rule, to his entire personal legacy. But for Volodymyr Zelensky, any concession, any step back, is seen as the end of Ukraine as a sovereign nation. There's no middle ground here at all. So, for the Kremlin, the strategy is really a gamble on attrition. The thinking is pretty simple. Russia is bigger, it's stronger, it has more people, more resources. The belief is that if they just keep grinding, keep throwing bodies and equipment at the problem, eventually, Ukraine will have to break. In their minds, time and patience are on their side. But here's the thing. This isn't just a two-player game. Not even close. This whole conflict is being fueled and funded by a whole lot of outside forces. The war in Ukraine has basically become the center of a global chessboard, a proxy battle for much, much larger geopolitical fights. Let's see how this all fits together. And then you get the ultimate wild card. Donald Trump's return to the White House was built on this incredibly bold promise that he could end the war in a single day. I mean, that's a statement that completely electrified the debate and set some massive, massive expectations. But as it turns out, reality is a whole lot messier than that. 5 months into a new presidency, and all the diplomatic efforts have basically hit a brick wall. The talks in Turkey, the prisoner exchanges, none of it has led to a real ceasefire. The war isn't just continuing, it's actually getting more intense. This moment, wow, this really captures the insane pressure Ukraine has been under. In a really tense meeting at the White House, President Trump reportedly told President Zelensky, straight up, "You have no cards left." It was a crystal clear signal that the days of unlimited American support were over, forcing Ukraine to completely rethink its entire strategy. And that rethinking, that recalibration, it's come at an absolutely staggering human cost. With the diplomatic track basically frozen solid, both sides have just doubled down on the battlefield. And that has led to some of the absolute bloodiest fighting we've seen in the entire conflict. Just try to wrap your head around this number. Over 200,000. That's the number of Russian soldiers killed or wounded this year alone. That's not the total. That's just this year. It's a devastating, horrifying toll that just shows you the pure brutality of a war where human lives are being fed into a meat grinder. So, facing this new reality, Ukraine has adopted a desperate and, frankly, brutal strategy of its own. It's called Operation Spiderweb, and the goal is as simple as it is horrifying: to entangle the massive Russian army, bleed it dry, and inflict so many casualties that it's just forced to give up and retreat. It's a war of pure exhaustion, fought for every single inch of ground. So, okay, when you put all of these pieces together, the leaders who feel they can't possibly back down, the global powers playing their own games, and the raw, brutal logic of attrition, you start to get a very clear and very terrifying picture. This, right here, is the toxic formula. First, you have pure stubbornness. what in Urdu is called Zid, where neither side believes it can afford to retreat. Then you have Ana, or ego, with the personal legacies of both Putin and Zelensky completely on the line. And this whole mess is propped up by global politics and, let's be honest, an arms economy that has a vested financial interest in making sure the conflict keeps going. That right there, that's the engine of a forever war. It really just leaves us with one final, sobering question. When the stubborn wills of leaders and the chess moves of nations create a war that simply cannot end, who is it that's actually paying the real price for every single day it continues?